All right, one of the greats to come out of Western New York and the Queen City of Buffalo. Well, Lackawanna, I'm sorry, in particular. Ron Jaworski. He was the beard before the beard, right? You were Fitz before Fitz, Ron.
Yeah, I didn't have the Fitz beard, but I did have a beard.
You had a
Um,
great beard.
when, when you play for Dick Freely, you don't have time to shave, so that's kind of the reason I grew the beard. Didn't have time to get up in the morning. I need to get to that film study.
You are looking amazing. I appreciate you doing this so much. Obviously, for those of you just tuning in, Jaws, if you didn't know, you might have just thought, yeah, he was on the Eagles, right? 17 years in the league, going back to the Rams, his first team, then the Eagles, then the Dolphins, then Kansas City. What a career. Went on to be obviously a great TV analyst, all the NFL film stuff. And for those of you who are watching that haven't kept up with Jaws and his career, Ron, fill in everybody as to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I've got my toe in the water in a lot of things. I appreciate you mentioning my 17-year NFL career. It seems like a long time ago, and 28 years at ESPN and calling Monday Night Football games. It was quite an honor to do that with Mike Tirico and John Gruden. We had a lot of fun along with Tony Kornheiser. So that was all in the past. I always kind of like what I'm doing now. I work at NBC Sports in Philadelphia. I do the Eagles pregame and postgame show. I have a lot of fun working with Barrett Brooks, and we just have a good old time. And it's talking football, talking pregame, talking postgame, and I'm also in the golf business. As some of you may know, I know a lot of people in Lackawanna, a lot of friends up there come down and play my golf course in the Philadelphia area. I own and operate. I shouldn't say I because my wife's involved, my son's involved. It's a family operation. We have a golf business, and absolutely doing very well. So I get around the golf, and every now and then my game is regressing rather quickly as I get older. The ball doesn't go like 290 anymore; it goes about 220. So it's hard to score. But that's kind of what I'm doing now, and I keep busy with 7 grandsons as well.
Awesome. And I will throw this at you, and I'm sure you're aware of Encore Golf in Buffalo.
Yep. Oh yeah. Know all the golf companies.
Yeah. Good friends of ours, and certainly it's great to see that you're doing as well as you are in your game. So, what's the best part of your game these days?
Probably putting.
Yeah.
It used to be my worst part, and now because there's one part I could probably pick up a couple strokes. My handicap at one time was a 5. It's up to a 14 now, so I'm actually making more money at a 14 than I made at a 5. The scores aren't quite as good, and so I got a lot of free time. So I'm getting old. I'm saying my back is hurting, my arm is hurting. I got all the excuses that golfers have now, as you know that, Bull. But most of the time, I'll putz around the yard and I got a putter and just work on my putting game.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the teams that are going to play on Sunday, and let's start with the Bills. Right, the Bills, they changed their OC midseason, and shazam, they scored 32 points after really the offense being sort of nondescript for about 5 weeks, and they do it against a pretty good Jets defense. So, kind of work us through that if you could. I mean, explain how that happens. We've heard the word energy a lot. There's a different energy. I mean, Joe Brady had 3 days to kind of put his own mark on the offense going into that game against the Jets. It's not a lot of time, but I'm assuming if you're a quarterback coach and you've been a coordinator before, somewhere in the back of his brain, he was watching the way the offense was being run and said, yeah, I might have run this here. I might have run that there. Do you think that was maybe part of it?
I think it's part of it, but as a position coach, you have to subordinate yourself to the head coach and the offensive coordinator. That's just the way it is, and you don't want to. Everyone has input. The one thing about the NFL, these are brilliant coaches. These guys, as you know, Bull, working 14, 16 hours a day, trying to find that one weakness of a defense or find the one strength of your offense, and they put in tremendous hours and have incredible respect for the coaches that coach at the NFL level. And I have great respect for Ken Dorsey, although he lost his job. But we'll see how it works out with Joe. But Joe comes in with a good resume. He was down there at LSU and did a really good job. Didn't work out for him in Carolina. But when you got coaches that are veteran coaches, they see a lot of different systems. They like to put their stamp on what they do. I'm sure in 4 or 5 days, he didn't have much of a chance to put his own personal stamp on what he likes to, on the Bills offense right now. But he'll come in with ideas, and we'll see how it works out. And so, I'm not a big person for the change for the sake of change. Matt Canada gets fired in Pittsburgh today, and we'll see how it plays out. But these guys are lifers, man. I know the hours they put on. I hate to see it happen, but sometimes change is good, and sometimes players, Brian Dable had a real good feel for the talent on that Bills offense. New people come in, not as good as it feels. So, we'll see how it works out. But I'm not going to say it's good or bad. It was good on Sunday against a very good Jets team. In fact, the Jets are the only team that have beaten the Eagles this year. So, when teams get it going, anyone can get beat on any given day.
It feels to me in the NFL, Jaws, that there isn't really that one dominant team. Yes, teams have really good records, but I don't feel like there's that one standout team in the league this year. Do you?
I don't think so, and I think I would say the Eagles. I think most people would because of their record at 9-1, but they've been behind at halftime in 4 of those games and come back to win games. They said they lost to the Jets, but it's kind of interesting because I'm sitting in my office at home right now, and I look at all the game tape. I'm set up here, and I got everything. I'm a wonk for the film study. I like to look at the tape and make my analysis, not what I read in the newspaper or reading some magazine. I like to visualize with my own eyes so I can make the proper opinion. And the Eagles, although they're 9-1, I don't think they've played their best football yet. They really have. They've been very uneven. Now, hey, maybe that's what they're going to be. Some teams, you are what you are. You guys went through in Buffalo. Watching this Bills offense for most of the season has been kind of tough. It's been very uneven. I don't sense a system in place where Josh wants where he wants to go with the football. And I know there is a system, but I look at so much tape, I get a pretty good idea of what teams are trying to do. And maybe it's Josh. I was sometimes worried about guys that are looking for the home run. And singles are okay. And I think Josh fell into the thing. I got the big, strong arm. We're on a roll. Hey, this is really easy. Defenses adapt and adjust. All of a sudden, they say that you want to be a home run hitter. They start dropping, 8 people back, rush 3 or rush 4, drop 7 in coverage, and they're giving you that check down. Sometimes the check down is good. And in fact, that's the one thing I thought I saw in the game against the Jets. He took the check down first. If someone's there, I know everyone says, post pattern, go route, look at that first. Sometimes just get a rhythm going, get a rhythm for the offense. Take those 3 and 4 yards. Sustain offense, stay on schedule. Don't get yourself in 3rd and long. Trouble comes in 3rd and long. And you guys, watch all the Bills games. He was forcing the ball into coverage. Sometimes the success you had can hurt you. You made some good throws and stuck them in there and squeezed in there, but this is the NFL. Those secondary players are good players. Linebackers, good players. They react all the time. Sometimes you get to believe you can get in all the time, and you can't. So you got to be judicious in where you make your choices.
With Ron Jaworski. So the Bills' offensive line arguably played their best game against the Jets, and it took them 11 games to be that good, and they have at least started the year with 2 brand new guards, 1 a rookie on this offensive line. Is it possible that it took them 11 games to finally develop that chemistry, or do you just think it was just this one game that it kind of happened in?
Well, I think you can win. You can win with great chemistry. And you can lose with great chemistry. I mean but I think the fact that it does take time, especially on the offensive line. And in fact, I watch the Eagles offensive line because I think it's the best in football. I really do. It's a veteran line. It's big, it's strong, and they'll maul you. Dallas Goedert, their tight end, is out. You add him in as a 6th offensive lineman, and I think they're really, really good. Goedert is out right now, and it does take time. This Eagles offensive line is a veteran group. So when you take it to the Bills offensive line, when you got interchangeable parts, it's hard. I call it the unspoken language. Sometimes you can look at a guy and you know what he's going to do. When you see a stunt by the defensive line, you know exactly what's happening. You know how to pass it along. If you haven't worked with the guy and spent time with that guy through training camp, through the preseason, through the regular season games, all of a sudden you're thinking too much. It's not coming natural. It's that unspoken language where you just know you're passing off. You got a back chipping. You can stay inside. All of a sudden they run a stunt, and you got to, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't have to say, hey, Joe, he's coming to you. No, you just know exactly what you're doing. So sometimes that chemistry does take time.
Very interesting. I got to go back to the Bills and Jets just for a second. And we've mentioned the Jets a lot here in our first 5 minutes of discussion. Were you ever on a team where one side of the ball was so much better than the other, like the Jets are? I'm watching that game the other night, and I literally felt bad for their defense because they were on the field so much, and you had to believe that they believed somewhere deep inside that their offense was just not capable of scoring. And for that reason, you'd have to think, they were so down, so dejected. They're out there busting their humps trying to get things done and keep this game close. But in the back of their heads, they know it's never going to be that way. Were you ever on a team like that? And what does it do to the locker room?
Yeah, but I've actually been on teams that we had a really good offense and a bad defense, and I've been on teams that had a really good defense and a bad offense. So this is where coaching comes into play. And you know, you set a standard of how you're going to play. I don't care if you're on the offensive side or defense side. There's a standard for which you play the game. I don't care if the score is 30-0, you're up, or 30-0, you're behind. You play the same way. The good coaching staffs, and by the way, Sean is a damn good football coach. His staff is a damn good coach. So there's no problem in there, in my opinion, whatsoever. But the standard is what you have to play the game at. You don't, you know the score, but the scoreboard doesn't dictate how you play. You play your ass off on every single play, no matter what the situation is. And when you finally develop that kind of feeling within your team, the consummate teams, the championship teams, they play for each other, not for themselves. They don't look at the scoreboard. They know one play at a time. You know, I played my last year in Kansas City with Marty Schottenheimer. And Marty's the only coach in the NFL that's won 200 games and not in the Hall of Fame. And he cut his teeth at the Buffalo Bills in the mid-'60s as a linebacker. So, and I love playing for Marty. And Marty's favorite saying was, one play at a time. One play, no matter what the situation was. You can't do anything about the last play. You can't do anything about the 3 plays. The only play that matters is the next play. So you better be able to give it all on that one snap.
Excellent explanation. We hear this term copycat league a lot. And you know, you got the offenses like Shanahan's in San Francisco and McDaniel down in Miami. And of course, you know, they have elite athletes for sure. But do coaches around the league, are they watching those two in particular, do you think, and saying, man, how can we take that and adapt that with the talent we have? Or do you think that those particular schemes and playbooks only necessarily work for the personnel on those two particular teams?
I think you have a system, but you have to have a system that can handle, you know, fast guys, slow guys, big guys, small guys. So you do have interchangeable parts, and it is a copycat league. There's, you know, I played for 17 years. I've covered it now for over 30 years. And I look at the tapes, I said, and you know, everyone saw Miami. You know, there's only so many guys teams that have the talent and quickness and speed that they have. No doubt about it. But then, as I mentioned, Eagles, there's only so many teams that have the best offensive line of football, like the Eagles have. So you can't copy what they do. Now, you always steal some plays, but I think the big thing that I see, the difference between teams that are maybe just the mediocre teams and the really good teams that are fighting for a championship is play calling. I think play calling is a forgotten art. You know, I've always felt there are some teams that got a hat in the sidelines, they pick a hat up. Hey, let's try this one. You know, but the really good play callers, the offense coordinators have a system in place. They set things up. They probe a defense. They look for that weakness. They attack that weakness. They're not just randomly calling plays. I think play callers really are more important than it's for each side of the ball than the head coach, because they got to worry about their side of the football.
You were a quarterback, and we're gonna get into the Eagles because that's kind of your specialty now. I mean, albeit you're watching everything in the NFL, but your Eagles are kind of your specialty. You're down there, you're doing the stuff with their broadcast group. I want to ask you about quarterbacks because, you know, there's Josh and there's Lamar and there's Mahomes and all of these great athletes who also happen to have darn good arms on them. But that's not the only reason why they're great, right? I mean, I'm maintaining, and I asked you this because you played the position. It's what's between the ears, right? That separates them. Forget about their athleticism and their arm strength. If you can't process defenses and if you can't know what you're looking at, you're not going to be successful like those guys are. Am I right?
It's exactly the right phrase. Process information. And the quarterbacks that do it the quickest are the ones that have long-term success. And, you know, process information, it's got to happen quickly. And people realize when that ball snapped, for the average, you got about 2.4 seconds to get rid of the ball before you get whacked. I mean, that's literally it. So once that ball is snapped, those 11 guys don't stand still and say, okay, I'm over there. It happens rather quickly. And the defense dictates where you throw the football, unless you got a bubble screen or one of those, you know, plays where it's dictated, the ball's going here to the outside, and we're going to block it on a bubble screen. But for the most part, you have to read the defense. And the quarterbacks that have long-term success in this league are the ones that study, that prepare, look for every hint and indicator the defense gives you. where is a defense end lining up? He's going to give you where the pass rush is coming from. There's always tips you're going to get. How the safeties align. When I played for Hall of Fame coach in Sid Gilman, and it always started with the safety and reading coverage. And to this day, when I look at tape, I still look at the safety. That's where it starts for me. The safety is going to tell you where you're going to get the best chance to complete a pass. Now it's not 100%, but that guy's mostly going to give you the best located look is the safety. He will tell you. If you look at tape all week and you see him at 18 yards for 50 of the 60 snaps, there's going to be 10 where he's down in the box. Well, those 10, you know what happens? They're blitzing. He's down there for a reason. He's got to take that back out of the backfield. He can't take him from 19 yards deep. So through your tape study, your preparation, find that best located safety. He's going to tell you what the coverage probably will be. But once the ball's snapped, then you define and validate what that coverage is. So there's a lot of tapes. It's not just talent. There's a lot of mental preparation that goes into it.
Let's talk about the Eagles now, and let's talk about Nick Sirianni. Now, were you ever
Jamestown guy, by the way,
Sure.
West New York guy, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, did you know his dad at all, or I mean, did you ever cross paths at all? Or
I did not know his dad, but I did know of Nick when he was at Mount Union, and I got to know when he was actually in Kansas City when I was doing Monday Night Football, and we just got talking one time about Jamestown, New York, and Lackawanna, New York, and West New York. So we kind of hit it off. And he was just cutting his teeth as a coach in the NFL then. But clearly he's come in, and what he talks about all the time, every time with everybody, is the standard. The standard is, and you hear other coaches talk about it, but he is really, really a believer in it. That no matter if he stayed home for a week, the team was still going to work hard and play hard on Sunday. Now that's not going to happen, but he believes if you have a standard, the way you go to work every single day, that's how you define your program. That's how you set up the win. So I'm a big Nick Sirianni fan. He's got a great personality. He loves the details. He loves the X's and O's. And the guys love playing. I'm around the team a lot in training camp, and they love playing for him. He treats the guys. He's tough now. I mean, he's tough, but he treats the guys with great respect. And he's got some veteran leadership, which always helps on a football team.
Yeah, both sides of the ball, especially on the lines of scrimmage with Kelsey and Johnson, and then on the other side you got Cox and Graham, and man,
14-year vets, future Hall of Famers,
and man, have they done a great job of mixing and matching that youth and that veteran leadership on that team, and let's talk a little bit about that team. You mentioned the offensive line. Obviously, the defense has been good, and the defensive line is massive in the middle with the two young kids from Georgia. But the one guy for me that really stands out, that at least I don't know if this is true around the league. It's certainly true in Buffalo. That doesn't get a lot of talk. Is Swift. I think Swift is maybe one of the most valuable guys on that team. Everybody talks about A.J. Brown, great. Devontae Smith, great. Goddard, great. O-line, great. Hurts has been fantastic. But Swift seems to get he's certainly down the pecking order, it seems, of the people that are productive for that team.
Well, you're talking DeAndre Swift?
Yeah.
Running back?
Yeah.
Okay. So that guy can play, and sometimes I think Nick forgets he's on the roster. I'm watching him say, 0-0, man, give him the ball. The guy, when he was acquired in the offseason, I was blown away he was available, because I always loved him when he was in Detroit. He was a tough power running back. He could pick up the blitz, which sometimes we don't talk enough about a running back's responsibility, and he could catch the ball out of the backfield. And the way that the Eagles like to run their offense, they like to spread you out, they like to get the ball in the perimeter, and he was a perfect guy. But sometimes Nick just forgets about him, and Brian Johnson calls the plays. I think Nick's got to go and say, hey, get it to Swifty over there. Get it to Swifty over there. Yeah.
He's so dangerous. And you saw in that Kansas City game, especially how dangerous he can be. And that's going to be a big chore for the Bills to handle for sure. Goddard hurt. That hurts the Eagles, obviously, in this game. But let's talk about the quarterback. Now, Jalen Hurts is a guy that seems to act and play on virtually no, I don't want to say he's robotic, but there's not a lot of emotion out of him. He just kind of goes out there and does the job. You obviously have been a lot closer to Jalen Hurts than most of the people watching this, or certainly me. So talk to the folks that are viewing this about, who and what Jalen Hurts is.
Well, that's a very good term. He's very robotic, very unemotional, but he's a tremendous leader. He's not one of those guys that wears his emotion on the sleeves. I think in my crowd, it's kind of a rah-rah guy. I played my hair on fire. Jalen is calm, cool, collected. He's a different kind of leader, and he's a very strong leader. He's one of the hardest working guys on the team. In fact, during COVID, Marty Morningwig was one of the coaches on Doug Peterson's staff, and I would talk to Marty a lot, and Marty would tell me, this guy, everyone tells you they're the hardest worker. This guy is the hardest worker on the team. I got to kick him out of my office at night. He wants to learn more. He wants to study more. He asks 1,000 questions. And he comes from a football family. His dad was a coach, and he's serious as a heart attack all the time. To get a smile, I know him personally, and I'm around. I'm trying to get him to smile, just like but he's got that raw. He's a very competitive guy, and he's a bitch now. He's a bitch to play against and you guys will see. Everyone's watched the play. He's played a lot of Monday night games, Sunday night games, and he's 245 pounds. He's got thighs like tree trunks. That's why the tush push is so effective. The brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. He's one of the reasons why. And then once you get that mass moving with his body there and his strength, it's hard to stop. But he's really improved as a quarterback. I remember going to some of the early training camps his rookie year. His accuracy wasn't repetitive, and he's just worked and worked and worked. Where he's gotten much more repetitive in his accuracy. I mean, he's throwing it almost like 68% right now, and with his growth in the system, and he's got talent around him. I said it earlier, best offensive line in football. AJ Brown's probably a top 5 receiver in the game. Dallas Goedert's out, but he's a great tight end. The number 1 draft choice in Devontae Smith on the outside. So they've got a lot of weapons.
So look, I mean, you know Western New Yorkers and their Bills fandom. I mean, a lot of times, they wear their hearts on their sleeve, and a lot of times they think with their hearts sometimes before they think with their brains. So there's a lot of people that see this big win over the Jets at home, big point out, but hey, we're back and we got the new offensive coordinator. Realistically, how do you think this game plays out between the Bills and the Eagles? And for Bills fans watching, what do they need to do to win this football game?
Well, I think the one thing that the Bills need to be aware of as players, now the fans, you'll see it. The Eagles are a violent, physical football team. When you see that defensive line, those 2 tackles are 330 and 340 inside. I mean, they're huge. They're space eaters, and you can't move them. Both are number 1 draft choices. When you look at Jordan Davis and Jalen, they're huge guys, quick speed off the edge, but they play with a physicality. And I think people are surprised by how physical they play down in the trenches. And I'm a big believer in offensive and defensive line play. And Howie Roseman, who's built the Eagles, that's where he spends his money, and that's where he spends his draft choices. Now, you'll get into Devontae Smith, and you'll get Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round and get some things there. But he spends money on defensive and offensive linemen. As I said to you already, the offensive lineman, is the best in football, and they come off the ball, they're road graders. So when you play the Eagles, I call it a double chin strap game. You better buckle it up twice, because it's not going to be easy. And what we saw on Monday night is they were horrible in the first half. I didn't know what team that was. I thought, it wasn't the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're relentless. They come out in the second half and dominated the second half. So if you don't bring it for 60 minutes, you're getting embarrassed. They played a half a game and beat the Chiefs. So they'll be home, they'll be wired up. Knowing Nick and knowing how they operate, they will have incredible respect for the Buffalo Bills. He respects every opponent. He respects the players and coaches league, and he will have his team ready because he knows what the capability of the Buffalo Bills are. Hey, they were uneven for 10. They had a big game. That's a big win over the Jets, and I'm sure Nick's selling it. Hey, that team, the Jet team, that they just whooped the ass on, they beat us. Our one loss are the Jets. So if Buffalo comes in and plays to their capability, they can beat the Eagles.
Interesting point. Do you have a Super Bowl sleeper at this point? Like, I know I watched somebody, I think on ESPN, they thought the Broncos were hitting stride. They obviously have Peyton as their coach, and they got some good stuff going and on a little bit of a roll. And the Texans with Stroud. I don't think realistically most people think that either one of those 2 teams would be, Super Bowl bound and much less winning it. But is there anybody that you think that's a little bit kind of middle of the pack right now that has a chance to get back there or get there in the first place?
Yeah, but I think there's a number of teams middle of the pack. The one team that's kind of, I think, has a chance to do something, the Detroit Lions. And they showed me something this past weekend because they played horrible. Jared Goff was absolutely atrocious. Now, those are the old Lions. The old Lions would have folded their tent and been in the parking lot drinking a beer, But this is the new Lions. And I love the way they played. They played horrible that first half. Goff was horrible. They come back from 12 down in the last few minutes of the game. So when a team that gives them the confidence, they're a talented football team. They need some help on defense. They're not, I wouldn't say a great defensive team, but they can score points when they get it going. But when Goff had that comeback, I said, you know what? I'm going to watch Detroit because there's something about that team. They didn't fold their tent like the old Detroit Lions used to do. Let's get out of here. So I wouldn't necessarily call them a sleeper because they're obviously leading the NFC North. So they're a good football team. But it's a team that I've been watching very carefully. Dan's done a hell of a job coaching that team.
For sure. I was just going to say, you've spent a lot of time in our couple minutes here talking about coaching, and he's certainly a guy that they're absolutely playing for in Detroit. Well, listen, man, anybody in Buffalo you want to say hello to while we got you on?
Everybody, man. I got to check out I know my Lackawanna High School football teams have another strong year. I didn't get any text messages this weekend, so I got to figure out what's going on. But no, I've got a lot of friends in Lackawanna. Still get back there a few times a year. Still, as I've gotten older, my mom and dad have passed away. My brother and sister have passed away. So there's no need to go back home like there used to be. But man, I have just absolutely fond memories. As you know, I was a Buffalo Bills fan like none other. When I was 10 years old, I had season tickets to the Buffalo Bills at the old Rock Pile. I still remember my seat, section 23, row 13, seat 3. I was there when we beat the San Diego Chargers for the AFL championship in '64. I mean, I'm a huge Bills fan, and it's funny. I always had my best games against the Buffalo Bills because I was really pissed they didn't draft me. I wanted to play for the Bills. Lou Saban as a coach, he brought me to the Senior Bowl game. I had a hell of a game, and I figured, okay, this is going to work perfect. I could drive my bike to practice from Lackawanna to the stadium, But it didn't work out that way. But I have absolutely unbelievably strong, fond memories of the Buffalo Bills and living in Buffalo and growing up in Lackawanna.
And Chuck Knox didn't bring you with him to Buffalo.
No, he did not. He probably. By the way, Chuck was awesome too. He was. Normally, your foundation is laid by the coach you had in your first couple of years. I had Chuck for 4 years, and and he was ground Chuck, and I still can remember just begging him when I'm with the Rams. We were in 4 playoff games, 2 NFC championship games, and so all we did was run the damn ball. We never made it to the Super Bowl. And I was at Chuck. We had Jack Snow and Lance Allworth, some of these really, Dick Gordon, Harold Jackson. We had these speedy, fiery wide receivers. Let's start throwing it 30 times a game. That was the old ground Chuck. No, that's not what we do. Let's get back to the dirty dozen. So 11 running plays on 1 pass. That was our foundation.
Well, I'll tell you, look, I mean, you had some good backs back then. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Back in my LA days, Lawrence McCutcheon was a heck of a running back.
Fantastic.
Jim Bertelsen out of Texas was a great running back. I was very fortunate. When I came to Philly, I had Wilbur Montgomery, if Wilbur didn't blow his knee out in his 5th year, he was headed to the Hall of Fame. He was averaging almost 1,500 yards a season. He gets hurt, and all of a sudden, as you know, as a running back, when your knee goes, very few guys come back to be 100%. But I was very, very fortunate, and later in my career, I played with Don Shula down at the Dolphins, and it was a great learning experience for me. I backed up Dan Marino for 2 years. Phenomenal football player, great guy, still remaining very, very close to Danny. But playing for Shula, the winningest coach of all time, it was a real honor to play for a guy that is that good of a coach. And there were no secrets to what he did. I can still remember his speeches. It was all about team. I mean, granted, he had Duper and Clayton and Offerdahl and Marino and all these great individual players, but every day he talked about team. And it's funny, as I run my business now, when I talk to I got over 700 employees in my company, and I talk about team. It's not going to be the guy that's maybe the best or the worst. It's the best pull up. Those are the lower level people, and that's what Shula always preached about. Yeah, we got some great players, but unless we play as a team, we have no chance to win. So it's one of the great life lessons I learned from Don Shula was, hey, it's about team.
One of the great football minds that you will ever hear from has joined us on our little show here. So, Jaws, I can't thank you enough. It's great to see you.
Let's do it again. But I love talking to my friends back in Buffalo.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, have a great night. Have a great Thanksgiving, obviously.
Amen. I got to watch this, though. So I'm getting a little old. I got to be careful. Belly's drooping a little bit. Yeah.
For sure. And keep up the good golf game, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
You're the best, man. We'll talk down the road. I remember double chin strap game this week. Guys better come in there and double chin strap that. Be a tough one.
You got it. I appreciate it, Jaws.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You got it.
Stay bull.
Bye-bye.